Are you scrolling through your feed thinking, I need something really amazing to hear about from someone absolutely epic? Then keep scrolling, because this isn't it. But I have an amazing topic for you. Now you'll scroll if you're still here. Death. Who wants to talk about death? Isn't that a nice morning cup of coffee conversation? No, obviously not. Nobody wants to talk about death. So that's going to work for me. But we need to be talking about it. We really do. You know, and I only say that because I've had so friggin' much of it. Nobody says it because everybody's so afraid of having it. But then when you have so much of it, you move past it. And that's really what I'm here to say. We as humans settle for such poor explanations on big ticket questions. And I don't understand why we do that, because we should have better answers. My creator is loving and logical. Love includes logic. When somebody takes the time to explain something to me, when somebody takes the time to explain how something is good for me versus or good for a system or a job, the same way we do with our employees, kids, whatever. We take the time to explain something or get someone's buy-in, it shows love. But my creator is an infinite being capable of way more love than I could ever fathom in my current capacity. Of course it's logical. If I find something in this world to be cruel or unloving, then I either don't have all the information, I'm missing a step, something is off. That's really been my entire life work, is to figure out what's going on here, because I was told my whole life that there was a loving God in this book that I was being taught about, but I didn't see it. I smell bullshit. And so it's very interesting if you just pull that. So now I've really resolved death. Not perfectly, but man, oh man, when I used to have things die, it was so hard. You know, I thought animals didn't have souls and they were just done. And even if then when I really did think they had souls, I still couldn't reach or feel for them. Like now, I have active relationships with things once they pass. In fact, my aunt, she's in a glass figurine over there, her ashes. I have a more active relationship with her now than I did when she was alive. And I don't talk to dead people. It's not like things are around. It's energy. I've just learned to feel energy. We're all waves and particles. You're waves and particles too. So, you know, your biology is moving slower, but they're waves and particles still. They're just moving faster. And so it's sort of, I've moved beyond to where I can see death as a loving, logical thing. Death is loving. You do not want to stay in this avatar. You get really stuck in the ways that you think, in the way that you're being. Everyone goes to heaven. The idea that it's any different is not congruent with a loving and logical God, period. To torture anything for eternity, to torture anything for even 5 minutes, you have to have a level of hate in your heart that's severe. I don't know why we have it in movies and shows all the time. I immediately turn it off. It's not natural to watch someone be tortured while you are sitting there. You should be immediately moving to interrupt it. If you can sit there, then you probably have some hate in your heart. And maybe that's how you can hold it in your creator's heart. It's such a key thing to realize that a creation cannot imagine a creator separate from itself. So we have designed God in our image. But that's not how it works. We were designing God's image. What does that mean? We have God's imaging device, which means that we're creative in nature. So we are designing a human God, but that's not our actual essence. We were created by something else. There's something a little bit off here again. You know, you can figure it out. But there's key things to remember that will always lead you to the right place. God is loving and logical. Everyone has ultimate autonomy and free will. No one can override anyone else's free will. You can convince them to choose something, but you cannot force anybody. There's no law of assertion. You can't force anything. People attract it. You can attract bad things to you. You can attract murder for yourself if you'd like. Because you have free will, even something that loves you isn't going to stop you doing something that's bad for you because it's part of your experience. Now, why wouldn't it stop something that's bad that's going to happen to you? Because it knows it's temporary. If you know your child has to fall to learn to walk, you don't stop them from trying to walk. I've never seen a parent being like, stop trying to walk, kid, you're going to fall and hurt yourself. That's absurd. We realize that in that context. That's the same thing God's doing here. Gives us full accountability. You attract what's coming. You take the consequences of everything that you choose to do and be. You are only in relationship with yourself. What you take from yourself. You steal from someone, watch, something will be taken from you in short order. You give to yourself. There are fail safes built into this system that make it loving and logical. You just aren't aware of it, which makes it seem cruel. And rather than go and figure out the link to the truth, you garble down bullshit about your own creator, believing he's a total capricious dick of a God, and swallow that as loving. And the problem with that is that means you allow that as loving in yourself. You allow it as loving in your relationships. You allow it as loving in your partners. In all of these ways, it's not loving. It's just not. God doesn't play favorites. It's absurd to think that a loving God would create differentiation and then judge it. Either he's a dick, or he created the differentiation and loves all of it, and everything of it is celebrated. You have a problem with it, which it says in your book, judge not lest ye be judged, because again, it's a fail-safe system. If you judge others, you can't actually hit them. You're only going to experience the judgment yourself. That's why people who judge the most can't actually express. So the people I know who never post on Facebook or Instagram are the ones who are scrolling and judging the most. That's the most natural thing in the world, because you if you were to post, have to experience your own judgment. That's one reason I post. Break through shame. Because it's my shame. It's my judgment. So I've got to get myself out there so I can judge myself, right? Let's get the judgment in the right place. It doesn't have to do with other people. It has to do with me. It's a relationship with me. And as I heal that, I heal judgment of everyone else. I allow other people to be how they can be. This is a shame healing process. But it's all built in to be safe. Like, judge not lest you be judged is to protect you. Not from God, but from yourself, because you're creative in nature. Get the stick out of your own eye, right? And someone else's, because projection is a learning device. You were designed to see what you need to learn in yourself outside of yourself, because there was an understanding that would be easier to perceive. You've confused it and decided that what you're seeing isn't you. So then you never have to address it. But now you've put what you need to fix in you out there, and that makes it very difficult to resolve. See, that's why we've got so much kind of chaos going on, is our constant lack of willingness to take accountability. Which is fascinating, because it's even built into the story of the Garden of Eden. We blame Eve, or we blame the snake, or God set the whole system up. So again, either God set up a system where we were going to fail, or we're missing something, or it's totally loving, and all of this was designed exactly how it was supposed to be. So we could just learn to walk in a safe environment, because eventually your biology dies. So you may suffer for 80 years, but in the realm of eternity, it's not actual suffering when you come out with learning. And we get that when we think about going to school. We get that when we think about going through labor to have a baby. We understand that there's a process of pain to grow. There's a learning in contrast. And so we needed an environment where we could sort of have contrast to drive our growth. And we're not doing it in a very pleasant way, but the growth is still happening. And do we want to do it in a more pleasant way is probably the real question, because God was loving and logical and did set it up well. We're just focusing on the wrong things. But we can't find our point of power to make it better, because we don't understand how it works. We're still thinking we're goo and not waves and particles. We still don't realize our thoughts have power and our emotions. But thoughts are waves, and emotions are like the way it's vibrating. So like, obviously in a world of like waves and particles, thoughts and emotions matter. They become matter, actually, funny enough. So that would be my little rant on that. And of course, these are things that everyone has to learn for themselves. You have to go through the process and experience it. I'm happy to have a thread and have a good conversation with you, because my ability now to manage loss and death is so far from where it was that now I can see why so much death and loss has served me. But there are distinct paths. You can choose to be bitter and miserable and close your heart down to love with a lot of loss. And that's completely reasonable. Having been through it, I don't judge. But it can also be a way to really open your heart and mind and being to a whole different level of living and experience. And that's why it's so good to talk about death. And it's so good to talk about some of those questions that we think are hard to answer, because you're God's loving and logical. And he gave you answers, and you should be asking those questions. Remember, real spiritual truth is not for the masses. So anything the masses are pitching is something else. And there's nothing wrong with that. But it matters what's on your heart. For me, I just want the truth for me. I want to know when I look at things that happen, that my God's still loving and logical, and that I can make sense of it. Because that means I'm vibing with him. He must see it that way. That's where I want to get to. Anyway, thanks for being part of this conversation. I love you. I'm going to go do some yoga. Hopefully you've got something beautiful to do day 2. I love you.